We're talking Wayman Tisdale and Little League Fireballers. And how about the first week of college football? Hello and welcome to another live edition of the Press Row Podcast on newsok.com. From the Dodge Sports Desk, I'm sports editor Mike Sherman. Joining me around the table today are columnist Barry Trammell, columnist John Rohde, columnist Jenny Carlson, all columnists, and me. Let's start off first with the most poignant story of the week. Folks, OU basketball legend Wayman Tisdale had surgery to remove part of his right leg. Wayman had leg bone cancer, and so this surgery has been made to hopefully save his life. And that just got us really thinking about Wayman. In fact, the day that story hit our papers, there it was, Barry's column about Mark Price and possibly being a part of Oklahoma City's NBA future, and then this story about Wayman written by Jenny. Sort of sent us down memory row. My question to you first with you, John. You know, when you think of Wayman, what do you think of as far as basketball in this state?
Billy Tubbs, and how did he put up with him for all those years? But now here's the thing.
You got to do that every morning.
Yeah, I do. Billy Tubbs spoke with Wayman, visited him in the hospital yesterday, says he's in great spirits. In an odd kind of way, this is a new beginning for him, and he's very optimistic. Best player of all time? I don't know. If you ask Billy Tubbs, he'd say Wayman. If you ask John McLeod, I'm sure he'd say Alvin Adams or Dave Bliss or whoever. But it's amazing that two best players in OU history didn't stay there 4 years.
Barry, what do you think of when you start thinking about Wayman?
I think of two things. One is I think about his personality, his smile and the way he captivated everybody. You don't see many people that play that way anymore. We've sort of adopted a new attitude among our great athletes. So I remember that about Wayman. Also, the thing when you ask, I don't know if he's the best basketball player in Oklahoma history. I tend to lean toward Mark Price because he made all NBA in 1993. But I think Wayman is by far the most popular player in state of Oklahoma basketball history. I think he's the most popular Sooner athlete ever. I think he's more popular than even football players because we felt like, and we did, know him so much better than football players. He doesn't wear a helmet. He's out there close to us. You get to know basketball players a lot better than you do football players. I think Oklahomans really got to know Wayman Tisdale.
Well, I remember in college, a bunch of our friends Wayman had this, and he had this weird clap he kind of did. He kind of had his hands like that one, and big old smile. Jenny, what do you think about Wayman?
Well, I think not only was he a great basketball player, but he's been a great ambassador for the state. I mean, let's not forget that beyond his playing days, he's now become a great jazz musician, a bassist of, he's won awards, and he's on, the charts and his records and his albums. I mean, he has been a great ambassador for this state from the time he was at Booker T. Washington High School until present day. He carries himself in a great way and has done so many things for the state. I don't know about the argument of best ever in the state. I would probably tend to lead towards him because he stayed here. He was, like Barry said, so beloved here. And, 12 years in the NBA isn't anything to sneeze at either. So great legacy, great ambassador, continues even now.
Here's my hope and dream for Wayman. I hope he's well enough on October 29th to play the national anthem at the first NBA game back at the Ford Center.
Just like he did the last time. And the other thing about Wayman, just thinking about sort of grading things, what if Mark Price was the best high school player, Wayman was the better college basketball player, and then Mark Price was the better NBA player of those two, but Wayman's NBA career he was really good. I mean, really good. Hey, next question. We asked readers on News OK if it was a good idea that Mike Gundy would be calling plays for Oklahoma State, which he did in the bowl game, and he'll be doing again, presumably Saturday in Seattle. When you're there to watch him play Washington State, guess what they said? 62% said, hey, good idea. Were they right or wrong? Start with Jenny.
I'm going to say wrong, and I'm going to say wrong because I don't think we know. I think this is an undetermined answer to the question right now. And honestly, I don't know if we'll know for a little while. I think these early preseason games are going to be a little bit difficult to know for sure how Mike Gundy's going to do as a play caller. And it's not so much about game day. And I know we've talked about this before. Game day calling plays, that's not the tough deal. The tough deal is the 6 days that are, the rest of the week and coming up with schemes and watching film. And if you're not into that process fully like your offensive coordinators usually are, how does that impact things? So these early games are not the toughest slate for this team, so I don't think we're really going to know until we get into Big 12 play just how Mike Gundy does as an offensive play caller.
Well, the interesting thing is Gundy's a huge Tom Osborne fan. and Tom Osborne called the plays. My question is this: doesn't he have enough on his plate? And they're in a fast break offense, and he had a coordinator. He kept a guy here by making him coordinator. He got a guy here by making him co-coordinator. Why give him those titles other than to justify their income? So, and I'm not saying they're going to butt heads or anything, but I think Gundy's got enough on his plate.
Barry, speaking of that, enough on your plate, I mean, this is ultimately a decision about what you do all week long as more than it is what you do for a few hours on Saturday.
Right.
Well, I think, first of all, I think play calling is overrated. J.G. Whitfield is correct in that what happens earlier in the week. Well, that's her name. But anyway, what you're dealing with during the week is the most important thing. Game planning, a lot more important than play calling. So, is it right or wrong? I don't know. I think it probably doesn't matter. But I do think Mike Gundy will not be in the war room Monday and Tuesday as much as those other guys will. Now, Sunday, usually, no problem. He'll be there all day. But if that takes away from his ability to call plays, to know exactly, to make quick decisions on exactly what's going on, then I think he needs to step back. If it doesn't impede it, then he'll probably be all right. When he's called plays in the past and been very successful, but he wasn't the head coach when he did it.
Well, he said it's a 5-man recipe and it's figured out by Thursday morning and it's scripted. So really, he's just looking at his Denny's menu and saying, let's go with the Moons over Miami, and then we'll get the Grand Slam breakfast after this. So, I'm with Barry. I think it is overrated, but there's just so many things, so many responsibilities as a head coach, and you can't be in the war room as much as your coordinators can.
Well, that's a lot of cooks in the recipe. The other thing I think about, speaking of the Denny's menu, his mother can forget about any more good pictures of Mike Gundy on TV or in the paper, because we're going to see a whole lot of this of Mike Gundy in Saturdays and Sunday morning papers. The second thing I think about is, listen, this guy played for Les Miles, and when he was he coached under Les Miles at Oklahoma State, and what we're told is that Les liked to call the plays, and what was called on Saturday really was a lot more reflection of what Les wanted than what Mike wanted. Although, remember the Bedlam game, 2002, where Mike comes running down from the press box and tells our man, I forget who it was, hey, I had 15 more plays we were going to score touchdowns against them. I think the guy loves that part of the game. I think he loves the play calling, and he said it's fun. I'm all for fun, John. You know that. Hey, next question. Another
John, you know that.
Another question we asked our readers on News OK, whether playing UT Chattanooga Saturday at Owen Field would really hurt OU for the long run, whether this was going to hurt them in the BCS poll, whether Mike Lupica, as you said, might even start typing his story in the first quarter on this one. Well, guess what? You users on News OK said 52% of you said, this is really not going to hurt OU in the long run. Right or wrong, Barry?
I think it's right. I don't think it's going to hurt OU in the long run. It'll hurt a little bit, but the truth of the matter is, whether they were playing Chattanooga or somebody else, they weren't going to be playing USC this week. They weren't going to put Michigan or Ohio State in with TCU, Cincinnati, and Washington. So it was going to be a rum-dum of some kind. You just didn't know how far down the food chain they would go. Turns out they went pretty far because they had to. Joe Castiglione, here's how sobering it was here. Here's what Joe C. told me this week. He said it about came down to Chattanooga or 11 games. They were thinking about maybe having to settle for 11 games. So, they did all they could to avoid this, and at the end of the day, they couldn't. But everybody in America except USC has a rum-dum on their non-conference schedule. So it's going to hurt them a little, but no more than it hurts everybody else.
You said something earlier, too, Barry. We were talking about Tulsa Union High School against U.S. Grant. This year, U.S. Grant from Oklahoma City's got to go up and play at Tulsa Union. And when you saw that game on the schedule, you said, where is the adult supervision? Is it something like that, though, this week when UT Chattanooga steps on the field against OU?
Yeah, it is, although I've actually talked to 2 Chattanooga players this week. And they're both expressed great excitement at this game. And you know what? I believe them. I think they are fired up to come and play. Sort of like if I played golf at Pebble Beach or something. I'd shoot 274, but I'd have a good time. And I'd think, wow, I made an 8 on the 18th hole. So I think that's what their mindset is. They know in their heart of hearts they're going to get steamrolled, but just the fact that they get to go up against the best college football has to offer in front of 85,000, I think they're fired up. I don't know what U.S. Grant thinks about going to Union. I'll have to go talk to the generals about that.
Well, and going back to UT Chattanooga and OU, you two are our latest AP voters. We don't vote in the AP poll anymore. John, in 04, I believe it was, that was the year, 3 unbeatens, right? Auburn, OU, and USC. Auburn ended up not being one of the teams in the BCS. It was OU and USC at the Orange Bowl, and that was largely because of their sorry non-conference schedule, which had not UT Chattanooga, but
the Citadel.
The Citadel. Now, do you think this is going to come back to haunt OU in one of those scenarios? Either there are 3 unbeaten teams, or there are several teams with 1 loss.
No, it's like Barry said. Everybody's got a dog on their schedule, except USC, and so there are a lot of dog pounds out there. And no, I don't think it'll hurt, because you got to beat up on somebody. You got to find somebody. These schedules are put together 5-6 years in advance, and I think the team that backed out, Barry, was Middle Tennessee State.
Yeah.
So if it's Middle Tennessee State, it's still going to be a rout. It's not that big a difference.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it necessarily, this game may not hurt him, but if you're an OU fan, player, coach, you're hoping like heck Cincinnati, TCU, Washington have good seasons. I mean, TCU and Cincinnati are 2 teams that I think some people are thinking are going to make some noise in their conferences. You really have to hope that those other non-conference teams come to play, bring something. Maybe UW finishes higher than their projected, 11th in the Pac-10 or last or next to last or whatever they are. Maybe they win a few more games than expected, and that helps you. I mean, you're really at the mercy of those other teams to do something good. And, UT Chattanooga is not the one you hang your hat on. You just hope like heck Cincinnati, TCU, and maybe UW do something to help you out there.
TCU is no slouch. I mean, TCU, I guess, will be fighting for right up there and competing for the league title. Although, here's one more plug for a nationalized college football schedule where all the rum-dums are eliminated. Now we're on to role play, and John, you are an 8-year-old fireballer pitcher who basically had you had your birthday yesterday, so you're 9 now. Happy birthday.
Well, thank you. I act my age quite often.
You're living in Connecticut, but just put yourself anywhere, and you're so good striking out everybody that they won't let you play. You're too good to play for the league. Is that fair or unfair?
See, I can relate to this because this happened to me throughout my entire childhood. First of all, I would tell my parents to shut the heck up. Let me play. Here's the deal. Nobody's talking to the kids about this. Those kids probably want to face that kid. Because I have my son Nick is 11. Last summer they played a guy who was a foot taller through, I don't know, I'm going to say 91. They were all 11-year-olds. I swear he was 12. But here's the deal. They
drove to the game, as we used to say.
They faced him, and when they'd go up to bat, they'd strike out, they'd come back, and go, wow, that was cool. And here's the thing. He struck out 6 people in 1 inning because the catcher couldn't catch his fastball. He pitched 4 innings, had 15 strikeouts. You do the math. And here's the kicker. We beat him 9-8. All those wild pitches cost him.
Wild pitch on the pitcher.
But nobody's talking to the kids. The kids want to play.
Right.
They just want to play.
You mean you're not out in the parking lot sticking, when my lawyer's done with you, you won't have a league flyers to everybody's windshield?
I'm really not.
My last year of competitive baseball, I was 14, Pony League in Norman. We scrimmaged. We went out to Little Axe and scrimmaged a team out at Little Axe. And the big talk of the day on the way out there is the rumor was that Little Axe catcher, some of those guys were sold. The Little Axe catcher was married. We were fired up to play that game. We were fired up.
Beat the married guy. Slide hard. Okay, our next role play. Jenny, your former OU basketball star. Jenna Plumley, now you're at Lamar. Say hello to Billy Tubbs for us, would you, by the way?
Absolutely.
Right, everything.
And question is, are you going to stick with college basketball?
Well, by the way, this is also somebody I can relate to as a fellow short person in the world. You know what? I once told Oklahoman reporter Jenny Carlson that I intended to play out my career because there were a lot of people back home in Frontier that really, Red Rock, that really wanted me to do well. And obviously I made a big mistake. And you know what? I've had examples around me of people that have let opportunities go. My brothers were all good basketball players, had a chance to go play college ball. For a variety of reasons, didn't make it. My hope is that I'm the first one to get it done. Finish college, get my degree, finish out my career. I know what can happen if you make repeated mistakes, and I'm really going to try to not repeat this. But right now, I need to get my head on straight because I clearly let a great opportunity slip by, and I really think I messed up a great opportunity. So
Jenna, why didn't you go to OCU? Why don't you stay in state? Why don't you stay close to home?
yeah, I don't know.
What's wrong with you, Jenna?
It's all jokes aside, guys.
Yeah.
Do you think that's part of the process just to get away, to get whether it's at OU,
Right.
whether it's influences at home?
I hope that in maybe moving away, there's some growing up that's done. You never know. Some kids are better closer to home, and some are better further away from home.
I mean, this is not a pleasant thing to say, but the history shows us, and the truth is that for whatever reason, it's tough on American Indian kids when they go away from home and go to college. And there's a mountain of evidence that they have trouble adjusting to the college campus culture. And why that is, I don't have any idea. But I can't imagine that it's going to be easier on Jenna 500 miles from home rather than an hour and a half. The support system back home is not going to be as relevant, as abundant. I think it's going to be tougher on her. That doesn't mean she can't do it, but I think it's going to be tougher in Beaumont than it was in Norman.
Is basketball, however, going to be easier for her in Beaumont?
I don't think so. I'm not surprised she left OU. I am surprised she left the state. I really am.
Hey, Barry, next question. You get to be role play. You get to be Bud Selig. You ever been Bud before on one of these deals?
No.
You are the MLB commissioner, and Bud, the question is, you have started instant replay in the middle of a season. In fact, no, not in the middle. Down near here we're in the pennant race, and now you've put in instant replay. My question to you is, have you ruined America's pastime once again?
Well, I haven't ruined it in the past, so the answer to that is no. But you know what? I think I messed up. I think it's a bad decision. I don't know whether replay is going to be good or not for baseball, but I don't think August 28th, when the Twins are trying to beat out the White Sox and the Brewers are trying to hold off the Cardinals and the Yankees are trying to climb back in against the Red Sox, that's no time to be bringing something new in. I mean, what are we going to do? What are we going to do the second week of September? Let guys run to third base first if they so desire? I mean, this is nonsense.
Ray Soldan proposed that one time. He thought that would be a better game. You could go both ways.
Well, we'll see, it would certainly create some base path log jams. But to me, this is a dangerous, dangerous thing to start this late in the year. So this is something I think you put in spring training. If everything works out, go ahead in April. It's one thing. College basketball had that rule. John, you'll remember 10, 15 years ago, they had some foul rule that all fouls were 2 shots. And I forgot exactly, but they thought, this is a way to speed up the end of games. So about 2 weeks into the season, they realized we're getting people murdered, and they just dropped the rule immediately. But that's not what baseball's doing. Baseball didn't put in a new rule that it can take out. Baseball has put in something that I don't think they can take out, because the thing about replay we've seen with the NFL, once it's in, it's in. So to me, that's a little dicey.
Well, my hope is that this will be a little bit like NFL instead of college football that has no regs. Everybody does their own thing, which I think is one of the biggest problems with college football instant replay. At least with the NFL, systems are the same. I hope Major League Baseball has done that. I hope that they have set up the same systems. I'm not holding out all hope for that, but I hope that's the case.
John, go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, I know the games are more important the later the season goes up, but it's implying that the games that before didn't matter as much.
Yeah.
And there was
what
a
about
week.
My call?
Yeah, exactly. There were let's bring back the Orioles and Yankees and Jeffrey Mayer and all that. All that stuff.
Don't
start with me. But here's the deal. Wasn't there a week or two where they just every night they screwed up?
Oh yeah.
And I don't know if it was Cardinal games or whatever, but those have an implication later on.
It was Yankee games. I think it's when it was.
Oh, okay.
Some A-Rod home runs. My question is this, and I love baseball as much as anybody, but baseball, when the game is happening, is like a timeout in football already. Mm-hmm. So what happens when you call timeout in baseball to go look at the videotape? What do you do then?
Yeah.
You have a chess match, a prayer meeting? What?
How about this? Anytime you look at the instant replay, mandatory pitching change. So because they're going to change them anyway here in 5 minutes, go ahead and make them do it now.
Make it do it now. Hey, a final question around the table. Predictions for this weekend's games, OU and OSU. Jenny.
I think both of them win by pretty large margins. If OU doesn't score in the 70s, I'll be shocked. So I think something like 77-3 with them. I think OSU wins by double digits, 10, 12, 14 points. So I like both of them to win big.
John.
OSU by 10. OU not by as much as we think. I think he'll call off the dogs. I'm curious how even the backup defense does against a Division I AA team. I think they're going to give up double-digit points. I got 13 points for Chattanooga.
A lot of pick sixes. Does anybody lay down like Brian Westbrook did for the Eagles right at the end zone? Barry.
I think OSU wins tight. I can't remember what score I picked for the paper, but 34-30, something in there. In Norman, it's a little bit interesting. You know who Chattanooga plays next week? They play Division II Cumberland. Why is Cumberland important in college football history?
Georgia Tech, 222-0.
Biggest rout in college football history. Georgia Tech beat them 222-0 many years ago. So I don't want to disparage Chattanooga by saying it's going to be 222-0. So I'm going to say they're twice as good as the team they're playing next week, Cumberland. 111-0 Sooners.
That's it for this week's editions of the Press Row. Please be sure to follow all these stories and more with the best coverage team in the state on newsok.com, newsok.tv, and every day in the Oklahoman.